It's called a Q&A. Ever heard of them? Was that weird?
Yeah, it was really weird.
Hi guys, it's Anna. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are outside taking advantage of the cool weather in Texas, which means that it is not 98 degrees today. That's what I mean by cool weather. I'm coming to you guys today with a Q&A video. I've been wanting to do this for a while, was gonna film it last week, but your girl got real sick and I'm better now, kind of. I asked you guys last week to send me some questions on my IG stories and you guys came through. There was so many questions and they were all really good. So I want to get started and pick a couple that I think will be really fun to answer. So the first question that we have today is from AA_Drew. I think your name's Andrew. For any new readers just starting, would you recommend digital comics or single issue trades? Now, I love this question because it was something that I asked myself when I first started reading comics too. I didn't know if digital comics would be the way to go for me, and it really just depends on what sort of reader that you are. Digital comics are a way more affordable option, especially for older comics, like maybe ones that you're not going to find very easily in comic shops. But I don't personally like to read on devices too much. It kind of hurts my head, and it takes away from the experience of reading comics. But I do know a lot of people really love Marvel Unlimited and some of the DC apps too that you can read comics online. Comixology also has a really good app that they use. I'm not sure if they still have it though. But I found that when I first started reading comics, a physical copy was just going to be a lot better for me. I do sometimes still do the digital, but it's very rare. So it's really up to the reader. Another great option besides digital and just single issues is trade paperbacks. They're really affordable, they're reprinted all the time, you can have different collections or volumes of them, and you're able to collect sometimes, 6 to 7 issues in one book, and they're usually around $19.99, $20 or so, and there's sales on trade paperbacks all the time. So it really is up to the reader. I like to read single issues and collected trade paperbacks, not digitally. So this question comes in from Darth Squidius, which is a great name. She asked, how did you get into comics? Now I did get this question from a couple of you, and I think I touched on it before in my first video, but I'll go ahead and tell you the story again. I first got into reading comics when I was really bored one summer home from college. I had moved back home after being away for a year, and I had nothing to do. All of my friends had moved away, and I was like, I need a new hobby. So I started reading comics. I went into my brother's room, he was dead asleep, and he had a couple of comic boxes. He had been reading comics for years, and I went ahead and picked up an XMen comic, and I was kind of flipping through it, and I was like, this is so fun. I've always been an avid reader since I was a kid. Growing up, I was obsessed with Harry Potter, Jane Austen, lots of English literature, and so transitioning to comics wasn't very hard for me. It was just another expression of reading for me that I enjoyed. So I got really into it after that. That was like 5 years ago, and I haven't stopped. And I don't see stopping anytime soon. So this next question is from Comics Gold, and he asked, which comic have you picked up that has unexpectedly exploded in value? And I brought it with me today in my very cool comic box. It has Powers of X on one side and House of X on the other. I haven't shown this on the page, but I'm pretty sure you guys know that I have this. I gotta have it. So the comic that I have that unexpectedly blew up in price is, I think, one that a lot of you may have too, because it just blew up for really a dumb reason, but still kind of cool. Which is gonna be Batman Damned. This was one that unexpectedly went up, and I knew that Batman Damned was gonna be a big theme because Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo were coming back for this team up that people had been waiting for since they did their Joker story together, and the reason that this went up in price is really silly, and I don't think that it's a big deal, but if you know, you know. The next question comes from one of my really great friends on IG, Cobra's Comics 84, and he asked, what's the one comic topic that gets you geeking out? So this is kind of a very fun question because there are certain things when it comes to comics that I'm like, oh my god, I cannot stop talking about it. And I think the number one thing that I geek out about is certain creative teams, so particular writers and artists. Whenever I hear that like Jeff Lemire has a new comic coming out, I get so excited, and it's all that I can think about until the comic comes out. And I think that's one of the things that I can geek out about forever. So when some of you have the same favorite creators that I do, I get really, really excited. Tom King is one of my favorites, Mitch Gerads, Jeff Lemire, Brian Azzarello, Scott Snyder. Oh my god, the list can go on and on and on. Jonathan Hickman. This has been an amazing X-Men run. House of X and Powers of X has been amazing. It's just what I wanted it to be. And yeah, I was geeking out on that for months before it came out, for sure. So I just got a off the streets question from behind the scenes over here. Is there a character that people assume you like, but you don't? And the answer is yes. There are comic characters that people assume that I really like just because maybe I post a lot pertaining to them in a certain way, but in reality I'm not huge fans of them. The one that comes to mind is Jean Grey. I love X-Men so much, and a lot of you guys ask me a lot of X-Men questions, but Jean Grey is by far not my favorite X-Men character. I don't think that she's the most interesting female that they have to offer, and a lot of the times a lot of X-Men stories will focus around her, and I think maybe that's not necessarily the best. There are other great supporting characters that X-Men has to offer, and Jean Grey is just not necessarily the best one. Don't come for me though. Just saying. The next question comes from Chicks Digged Win, asked, what has been your favorite issue in Tom King's Batman? So that's kind of a hard question because there has been right now 78 or 79 issues, which is a very long run. It's been over 2 years that it's come out. But I have to say, the work that he's doing recently has been some of the best work on his run. In particular, issue number 78, which these covers are beautiful, have been really, really awesome. I've loved the work that him and Clayman have been doing together, and I just think he's hit a stride, and it makes me so sad that he's ending his run soon because, man, all of this building up to the City of Bane event has been world building, hard work, lots and lots of patience, but it's been fun. Next question comes from Emma's a Geek, and she asked me, who is your favorite X-Men villain? That's kind of a hard question. There's a lot of really great X-Men villains. My mind wants to say Magneto because he's like the classic quintessential X-Men villain, but I don't know if he's my favorite. I really enjoyed reading the Hellfire Club. I thought they were some really awesome, great group of villains that X-Men had to offer. But overall, I think Mr. Sinister is a great character from X-Men. I think he's just a very, very good bad guy. I like the way that he's implemented in the newer X-Men stories too, and I'm looking forward to see if they'll introduce him into the X-Men movies, because I think that's the way to go. My next question comes from the _JJ Machado, and he said, what is your favorite variant that you own? So I just posted up it's probably my favorite variant of all time on my page not too long ago, and it's A-Force number 1. It features the character Singularity on it, and it is so beautiful. It's a Stephanie Hans variant, and it was the first one that I ever splurged on. And it was like $25, which at the time I thought was so expensive. It wasn't, not for a comic. I've spent more on one, that's for sure. But at the time, it was the first big purchase that I had, and I just have so much sentimental value towards it. But I do have to admit, these House of X, Powers of X variants that have been coming out, particularly the connecting ones, had been some of my favorite ones. The George Molina one is badass. So the next question comes from he_gentleman, and he asks me, what's the most underrated indie series right now? I feel like some of the most underrated indie comics right now have to be Coffin Bound, which just came out a while back. It's only on the 2nd issue, but man, the 1st issue was so killer. The art was cool. The story is really interesting. It's a little bit more graphic, so I wouldn't recommend it for younger readers, but I definitely say you should check it out if you haven't yet. Another indie that's flying under the radar just a bit, but I still think is so cool, is Sea of Stars by Jason Aaron. Man, that comic is visually so stunning. The story tugs at your heartstrings. It's about a little boy who's lost in space and his dad who's trying to find him. Definitely a must read. Jason Aaron's a really big writer right now, but I still think that that comic needs to be read more. Lastly, Gideon Falls by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Now, I do know that it is like a huge indie book right now, but it's worth mentioning because I freaking love that book. Horror, mystery, bloody stuff is good. And my last question by one of the greats on Instagram and here on YouTube, Fire Guy Ryan asks, where do you see yourself and your channel in 1 year? Now, I don't know. I would just be so excited to still have my channel and still be posting really fun stuff in a year. I think that by then, I will hopefully have gone to some really awesome cons and you guys will have been able to come with me. I think the comic community is all over the place and it's awesome that we have social media platforms to be able to connect with each other and just to be able to meet more of you and to grow this little page as much as I can. That's where I want to see myself in a year. I think I'll still be having as much fun with comics as I am now, maybe more so. Which doesn't seem possible, but it always happens. So that's what I'm expecting. But I think more than anything, I have to say thank you to you guys, because for you all watching my videos and for checking out my posts on Instagram. So a year from now, more cool videos, more cool friends, more cool Anna stuff. That's where I want to be. Thank you guys so much for watching my video and for submitting some great questions on Instagram. I hope to see you guys soon.